Today we examine one of Rashid Nezhmetdinov's most beautiful games. This game isn't as well known as some of his other masterpieces, partly because it was played in a simultaneous exhibition. In this game, Nezhmetdinov's opponent followed an opening line recommended by the Opening Encyclopedia. However, with his romantic play, Nezhmetdinov refutes the line, after which it was corrected in the next edition of the encyclopedia. So let's dive into this attacking masterpiece. Nezhmetdinov starts with d4. His opponent plays the Grünfeld defense: knight f6, c4, g6, knight c3, d5. Nezhmetdinov exchanges on d5. After knight takes d5, white occupies the center with both of his central pawns. Black, of course, exchanges, and black immediately attacks white's strong pawn center by playing c5. And now that the black pawn is on c5 and it cannot return to c6, Nezhmetdinov gives a check. And the most natural move for black would have been bishop d7. But the encyclopedia recommends knight c6, and black follows the recommendation. It might seem that after d5, which was the case in our game, white is winning a piece because the knight is pinned, and by playing d5, white attacks the pinned piece. However, it isn't the case. Black can easily save his piece by playing a6, for example, which black didn't do, but which was actually black's best move. By playing a6, black in his turn would attack the knight. Now if white the bishop. If white captures the knight, black will capture the bishop. And if white retreats the bishop, holding the pin, then black, of course, would play b5, and after the possible exchange of the minor pieces, the position would be equal. However, instead of a6, the encyclopedia recommended queen a5, attacking the bishop in his turn and also targeting the weak c3 pawn. Now, of course, if white captures the knight, black would capture the bishop, c6 would be under attack, white must capture, and after bishop takes b7, black would be much better on account of his bishop pair, active queen, and a better development. For this reason, of course, Nezhmetdinov doesn't capture the knight. Instead, as his bishop is under attack, he plays queen a4, defending his bishop and leaving the c3 pawn without protection. And also by playing queen a4, white is attacking the queen. He is threatening simply to win the queen, because the knight is pinned. It isn't really defending the queen. So black doesn't have any choice. He must capture on c3. If he exchanges the queens, then white is winning a piece. Now the bishop would capture, retreating from b5, so black doesn't have a6 anymore with a tempo, so next move white can capture the piece. For this reason, black doesn't have a choice, he must capture on c3. So the black knight is doomed, of course, but black in his turn gives a check and also attacks the rook. Besides that, as white cannot play bishop d2, in this case black would capture the rook with a check, so the white king loses the right to castle. He must move to e2. The white king will be stuck in the center. Now, of course, black cannot capture the rook yet. If he does that, of course, at the moment he's up a rook, but white immediately gets a piece for the rook, so black is only up the exchange, but white's attack would be devastating. White is threatening c7 with the discovered check, or c takes b, again with the discovered check, capturing the rook next move and promoting to queen, so black is losing. The best move for black would be king d8, moving away from this diagonal, but on d8, of course, the king is standing on the open d file, and white would have played knight f3, developing the knight, opening the rook's way. The rook is defending the bishop. Besides that, of course, rook d1 is coming, and there is nothing black can do about it. For example, after bishop g7, rook d1 check, king c7, bishop f4 check, with the discovered attack on the black queen, white is winning. For this reason, as black cannot capture the rook, he plays bishop d7, unpinning his knight, and now white must capture the piece, the knight. So, at the moment, white is up a piece, but black captures on c6, attacking the bishop, so white captures on c6. Now black still cannot capture on a1, because white would capture on d7 with a check. So black plays rook d8. not only defending the bishop, but also placing his rook on the open d file, and this rook will play a very important role, as you will see. So we have reached the critical position, and this position was evaluated by the encyclopedia as a draw, because black not only is attacking the rook, he also has another threat, a more sophisticated one. If white saves his rook, by playing rook b1, which looks like the most natural move, black would have executed his second threat, namely a beautiful queen d3 check, sacrificing the queen. White has no choice, he must capture the queen, otherwise he would lose his rook. And the idea is to lure the white king to the open d file, after which black would first get the piece back by capturing on c6 with the discovered check, and white cannot save his queen. The king must move, after which black would get the queen back and would be up a pawn. So, what to do? Rook b1 doesn't work, and queen d3 check is threatened. If white plays knight f3, for example, opening his rook's way to d1, of course black cannot capture the rook. That would be a terrible mistake, because white would capture and his rook would be pinned, and the second rook would join the game with great effect. The rook would fall, white would win. But after knight f3, of course black wouldn't capture the rook. Instead he would have played queen d3 check again. And if white captures, I've already showed you this variation, bishop takes c6 check, followed by bishop takes a4. And if the king retreats to e1, which is white's best move, then again queen c3 check would follow. And the game would have ended with the perpetual check in a draw. So neither rook b1 nor knight f3 works. If white captures on d7, which looks like another natural possible move, then after rook takes d7, although the black rook is pinned, it still plays a very important role. It controls the d file. And white again cannot play rook b1 on account of queen d3 check, followed by queen takes b1, and black is even winning. So after bishop takes d7, rook takes d7, as white cannot play rook b1, he can try knight f3. Again, black cannot capture the rook, because rook d1 would follow, but black would have played queen d3 check again. And again, the game would have ended in a draw with the perpetual check. So this position, after black played rook d8, was assessed as a draw in the encyclopedia. However, now Nezhmetdinov finds a fantastic idea. And you can pause the video and try to find it. I will just give you a small tip. The idea is a romantic one. Namely, Nezhmetdinov sacrifices a lot of material in order to bring his remaining minor pieces into play with a tempo and initiate a deadly attack on the black king. So now you can pause the video and try to find this idea. What to do? Not only the rook is hanging, but also queen d3 check is threatened. So Nezhmetdinov leaves his rook under attack, and in order to prevent queen d3 check, he plays queen b3, leaving the rook unguarded. Black has no choice. He must capture the rook. If he exchanges the queens, as white is also attacking the black queen, if black exchanges the queens, before recapturing the queen, white would first exchange the bishops with a tempo and only then capture the queen, and white is up a piece. So after Nezhmetdinov's brilliant queen b3, black has no choice. He must capture the rook. And now we can see Nezhmetdinov's idea. First, he sacrificed the queen's rook in order to develop the bishop with a tempo, attacking the queen, also targeting the rook. But Nezhmetdinov isn't actually interested in this rook. The bishop will play a very important role in the attack on the black king. The only square for the queen is b1. And now Nezhmetdinov sacrifices the king's rook in order to bring the knight into the game with a tempo this time. Knight f3, again with the discovered attack. And the knight will coordinate with the queen very well. By playing queen b3, Nezhmetdinov also targeted the weak f7 pawn. So black again has no choice. He must capture the rook. And now we can see the idea. Black is up a whole rook, the exchange, and a pawn. But his material advantage has no significance whatsoever, because his queen is out of play in the corner of the board, his king side isn't developed, and all these pieces cannot take part in the defense of the black king, while the white pieces now initiate a deadly attack. First, knight e5. Of course, Nezhmetdinov isn't interested in the useless rook, so he plays knight e5, threatening checkmate on f7, and also targeting the bishop. Black has no choice, he must defend against the checkmate. He plays e6. Now, bishop takes d7 check. Rook takes d7, queen b8 check. And now we can see the power of the bishop. If black plays king e7, then he would get checkmated in one move. Knight c6, checkmate. The king cannot move to f6 because of the bishop. So, after queen b8 check, the only move is rook d8. Now, queen b5 check. Again, black has the only move. Rook d7, of course, doesn't work because of queen takes d7 checkmate, so he must play king e7. And now, queen b7 check. So, f7 will fall. The king cannot move back to e8 on account of checkmate in 1, so the black king must move towards the center. He cannot move to d6 either because of knight takes f7 checkmate, so the only square is f6. But now, of course, queen takes f7 check. King g5. Knight f3 check. So where should the black king move? If he moves to g4, then the e6 pawn would fall with a tempo and the king gets checkmated next move. If he moves to h6, then queen f4 check and again checkmate next move. So the only square is h5. But now, in order to lure the black king to g4, Nezhmetdinov sacrifices a pawn. In order to capture on e6 with a tempo, queen takes e6 check. King f4. Bishop e5 check. King takes e4 and knight g5 checkmate. And now I recommend watching Nezhmetdinov's most enigmatic attack. But first, like this video and subscribe, as it's really helpful for the channel growth.